Hello and welcome to another Drive-In Double Feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before I get into anything, we got a Patreon over at patreon.com/Drive-In Double Feature podcast. I got a telegram from one of our European fans saying how much they loved the podcast. I couldn't read it because it was in French, but it
You just
was
assumed.
it's somebody sent me something in French on a postcard, and I assume it was about the Patreon for this podcast. It
Well,
may not have said that, but that's why I assumed it said. And they
mm,
said
mhm.
they said, "Oh, $5. I wish I could give more." and and,
Yes.
and they talked about how much they love our bonus content over there, our flick chart fights, our discussions, some fun games and quizzes. They say magnifique, and
Do more, do Jerry Lewis rankings on there, please.
yeah, that's what they said. Please, more
Mhm.
Jerry Lewis movies. So don't worry, we're going to be talking about the Bellboy very soon. But anyway,
Very soon.
but anyway, if any of that stuff sounds perfect to you, it is only $5 a month. It doesn't affect any regular content, so go check out that Patreon. But today we're going to be talking about 1970s Gamera versus Jiger, and that is from directed by Yuasa. He's back again. He's still here. He's probably going to be one of our most watched directors this
I,
year.
I think he's number one for me right now.
And so he is definitely climbing up the ranks right now. This one is right after Giron. This one I would say is a lot more of the same, but I think this one kind of excels a little better because one, there is stock footage in this, but it's all self-contained to the opening credits, which I think is totally fine.
Oh yeah, that's like a recap. Like I'm totally chill with like, oh, this is where we've been with Gamera. Moving on. Let me tell you, it was a breath of fresh air not to see any stock footage in this movie at all.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like in this one, like they always go to like, well, we have to look at footage to see what this Gamera monster has done, like aliens or something like that is in this one. What I like about this one is that there's a lot more of like, I guess like occult type of stuff. I guess
Mhm.
if you want to put it like that, it's very much like there's like a monster that's being self-contained and that's being held by this like one stone because I guess like the main setting for this movie was set like during like the World Expo in 1970, which was a real event in
Mhm.
Japan. So they had like a pavilion area, and that was like kind of like, oh, well, let's just work that into the script for this movie. And
And
they're
it's like
like,
a
they're
it's a huge deal. Like more than protecting human lives, they're like Expo 70 is gonna get canceled because Gamera or sorry, because Jiger just is gonna destroy it.
yeah, the Expo 70 is like the biggest thing in the world right now.
Hmm.
And it's like human lives be damned. Like we are going to put on this expo.
Hmm.
It's so much so that they want a artifact, a statue from not Easter Island, Wester Island. It's like,
I'm gonna be honest with you. I downloaded subtitles for this one, but yeah, I had like subtitles from somewhere else, and I saw Wester Island. And I was like, "Oh, did they misspell Easter Island?" I was like, "Oh, someone messed up." No, it is Wester Island.
yeah. And it's, it's really, I mean, it's supposed to be Easter Island, but they don't want to, I guess, call out any particular country or anything like that. So
Hmm.
they're like, hey, we're going to go bring this artifact over here. We don't care how it's going to get done. This
Hmm.
is how it's going to happen. And there's an envoy or like a special guy representing Wester Island, and he's just in their office like screaming about it. It's like he's saying like it's going to be like Jiger is going to come out. They're like, Jiger, who the hell is Jiger? Like, get this guy out of here. And
Yeah, they
uh,
kicked him out, even though he's like he's obviously upset with what's going on.
yeah, it's very much like he's trying to warn them, and it's letting them know that this is going to be bad news if it does. Now, continuing the theme of the Gamera series is that we still have children as our protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
And the main protagonist for this one is Hiroshi. It's a little Japanese boy. But in this one, last movie, or no, 2 movies ago, it was Jim. Next movie was Tom. This one, they took a big difference. Now it's Tommy.
Oh yeah,
And
Tommy. Yeah.
and we got a little American girl. It's Susan.
Oh, that's like the perfect name for an American girl.
Tommy and Susan are here to help Hiroshi out.
Yeah, yeah, they're all best friends. Even the parents are friends with each other.
I the thing that's so funny, like I like about these little American boys that are in these movies, like they each have like their own distinct like features, like outfits, like
Uh-huh.
almost like Jim was like a boy's like a little Boy Scout, so he had like his little military outfit on, and then
Mhm.
the last one was Tom. He was like a slingshot expert,
Uh-huh.
and this one he has like a little blazer on throughout the whole movie, like he's like going sailing.
Yeah, I know. It's really funny actually. And they say they're little, but they're actually like quite a bit older than the normal kids in like Gamera movies are. They're like teenagers, like young teenagers.
Yeah, probably like 13, 14, something like that.
Yeah, but
Except Susan.
Susan is a little girl.
Okay, so we got to talk about Susan. I again don't mean to be mean. She's a
But
little girl.
she's
She's
dog
a
shit.
those are your words, but I'm not gonna disagree either. But look, she's a little kid, so obviously, like it's very much. I'm almost positive they did the same thing that they did for the last 2 movies, where it was just who can we get that is American and can speak both English and Japanese.
Mhm.
And it's obviously like these 2 kids were probably like living on a military base or something like that at the time. But Tommy he's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
nothing.
he's okay.
He's okay. But Susan, she has like the same expression on her face where she just looks like she's about to cry at all times,
Yeah.
and and very very poor delivery. And like I said, I don't want to rag on her too much, but it's not good. I'm just gonna say that.
It's a little grating, the kid stuff in this one, especially her. A little bit later, which we'll get into, the kids like to scream a lot in this one. Like there's like that Gamera fight at the end. They're like, "Go Gamera, go!" And they're just like
Yeah,
yelling the whole fight. It's like, come on, tell them to shut up, please.
yeah. So it's a lot of that. I mean, but
But I won't say they're bad. I think Hiroshi and Tommy are actually fine.
they're fine. I mean, like I
Mhm.
said, it's not. It didn't take any enjoyment out of the movie for me having them in there. But
No.
anyway, Tommy and Susan, their dad is like a excavator, or like he's like helping with like the delivering of this statue,
Hmm.
and they go to Wester Island to secure the statue. And Gamera like is like not having that at all. He like Gamera already knows like something's up here, and like Gamera shows up, and he's like and like trying to get them to like stop doing what they're doing.
Yeah,
And
he's like even holding the statue, like holding it back from like the helicopters taking it away.
right, and the statue is supposed to be um, kept in the ground because it's like a staff type looking thing, and they want this statue so bad they are willing to kill Gamera for it. Like Gamera already has like a proven track record of like saving the Earth countless times. Like
Hmm.
I mean, he was only a bad guy in one movie. It's like every other time he's been like a good guy. So it's
Yeah.
like at no point should they have ever like because Gamer doesn't even do anything. They're just like, oh, he's trying to stop us. Like shoot him, shoot missiles at him,
Yeah.
shoot guns at him. Like what the
Yeah,
hell?
and even the kids are like, he's a friend to all children. Stop. Like, they try to stop him, but I guess friend to children doesn't matter. Expo 70 needs this statue.
Expo 70 needs this statue more than anything, which is really funny at the very end of the movie, like the resolution to that plot point. But anyway,
Hmm.
um, one thing since we're talking about the statue, I want to go ahead and say this plot point since we're talking about it is that you think like the statue was meant to like contain Jiger as like some type of key or lock
Hmm.
or whatever. But no, it actually turns out that that statue was a giant whistle, and it has like it's hollow in between. So like when wind would hit it, it would play this sound that would annoy Jiger enough to put it to sleep, the type of thing.
Hmm.
Just very silly. Like don't even think about
Yeah.
like why would you even think that's an idea? Like who would even
I,
think of something like
no,
that?
exactly. It's such a creative idea, but
Yeah.
like odd that you would like choose it for your movie. They're like, oh yeah, no, I've got this idea for a giant whistle, and it makes noise and it keeps the monster asleep. Whoever thought of that has a very creative mind.
Yeah, but it's a very funny one. I mean, like Gamera just kind of like gives up, like, all right, like I
Yeah,
guess
after a few gunshots.
like okay, well, your funeral, guys, and
Mhm.
but um, they take the statue back to Japan, and at that point, that's when Jiger wakes up, and Jiger is a giant triceratops looking monster with like kind of like a stegosaurus back
Mm-hmm.
and looks like a dinosaur. I mean, looks good.
Yeah, I think for a monster, it's not like I think Jiger isn't like notable as far as looks go. Like you said, it looks like a dinosaur. I think it's Jiger's powers that make it interesting. It's not like a giant knife, but it has a lot going on.
I at first when I was watching it, because I've never seen this one, but as for first I was watching it, I'm just like I was a little underwhelmed by its design
Hmm.
because I was like, come on, like the last one was like a giant like machete. It was like
Hmm.
we're going backwards here. Like what's going on here?
Yeah.
But it definitely makes up for it with its power because Gamera shows up and already. And by the way, Jiger, which we come to find out later in the movie, is our very first female kaiju in a
Hmm.
Gamera
Yep.
movie.
It's a she. And yeah, like you said, they finally meet up. And does this movie did this one have a bigger budget? Do you know that? Because it feels like it does. There's a
I
lot
well,
more monster stuff.
I don't know that for a fact because the I'm gonna go ahead and say this right now. The commentary for this movie was awful. Like one of the worst
Really?
commentaries I've ever heard.
Oh my God. Would they just get like some guy off the street?
That's what it sounded like, kinda. But since I'm talking about it, I'll go
Yeah.
ahead and mention it. But normally, what I do, what I like is I watch the movie and then I watch it again with the commentary, so that way I can come in and I like to cite a lot of the stuff that they said in the commentary. It just adds another layer to this one. But
Hmm.
in this one, this was done by I'm going to say his name, done by Edward Holland, and he's supposedly a film historian who lives in Japan. And I don't know if you remember what I was saying before about the commentary for All Monsters Attack and like how bad that one was. I don't know if you remember us discussing this one.
Yeah.
I think this one might be worse.
Wow.
Like
Okay.
it is the guy is just reacting to the movie. And that's like the worst possible commentary I could think of. Or it's just
Yeah.
like there'd be like little gags in there where there's a scene where they're in a submarine and like the kid like throws the hatchback and it hits his dad in the head and you just go, ouch, that had to hurt. And
Uh-huh.
and he
That's horrible.
all right, and like he would maybe point out like, oh, that's so and so, this actor or whatever. But it's like when he was talking about Susan, it's like, oh, there's Susan, she's giving her best. She's a kid, like give her a break. Or and
That sounds miserable. Sounds boring.
and he'd make really dumb jokes too. Like there's a scene like we learn much later. This is spoiler territory where like Jiger's main weakness is sound, and they have to play like these really loud sounds to like get it to subdue it. And
Hmm.
he makes the joke like because he's like, okay, they're turning on the speakers and pump up the volume, and it's like I
Oh
was like, oh my god,
God.
and just very like
Arrow was like, yeah, we just need to get someone on this one.
I I have never had the thought like when I was listen to a because usually it's like, oh wow, these people are super insightful, and
Hmm.
I like always like, oh man, I actually learned something on this. Like I usually get take away something,
Mm-hmm.
from each one of these. This is like one of the few times I've actually listened to a commentary. It's like I feel like I could have done a better job, and I'm not like,
Probably.
and I'm not even like the most eloquent person in the world, but it's just I I was so annoyed listening to this commentary. It was just like I hate this.
That sounds miserable. I'm sorry you had to sit through
Uh,
that.
Like just imagine if somebody was sitting next to you just making dumb comments like throughout this whole movie.
Yeah,
And
which is something I hate.
yeah, so that's what that commentary was like. Cannot not recommend this enough. Do not ever listen to that commentary. It is so bad. But
That's
anyway,
no.
I
Uh,
didn't learn a damn thing. That's the thing I was trying to say. I didn't
oh
learn
yeah.
anything.
So we
So
don't know if it has a bigger budget or not.
I'm assuming it probably had less, but I
Yeah,
don't,
because it
because I
always
mean,
went downward like that. But
yeah.
it's just crazy. It's like this Gamera, you see a lot more Gamera fights. You see a lot more of him fighting with Jiger and like city destruction too. Jiger destroys cities with explosions. When's the last time we saw that
Oh,
in like a Gamera movie?
okay, I misspoke. So I mean, this is according to Wikipedia. Nobody hold me accountable for this, but it's that supposedly the budget for Giron was 24 million yen, and this one has 35 million yen.
Oh, okay.
So probably a little close because I think the last one, like if you equate it, it's like 800,000. So this is probably like $1 million, probably close
Wow.
to.
Big money.
But yeah, it's a step up in quality. So yeah, I do agree because that's one thing I did notice though is just the miniatures alone. I was like, it's like man, I feel like we haven't seen miniatures in a long time. Where it's like Gamera's
No.
like actually in the city.
Yeah, with like explosions and destroying things because there's a lot of shots of there's a great shot of Gamera getting hit and flying back into a building. They love throwing these monsters in the buildings. Like Gamera flies Jiger up multiple times and just drops him or
It's
drops
a cool
her.
visual.
It is, but the thing is Jiger is very immobile. So it's like dropping like a stationary toy into a
Yeah,
building. It's really
yeah.
funny visuals.
Imagine if you grab like one of your old like dinosaur toys and just like let go. Like that's what it looks like.
That's what it same when Jiger's flying because Jiger has a jet propulsion like in the back of its head, and it just everything is stationary as it's flying.
Yeah, but that's one of the powers that she has, and one of the other ones which we can kind of see because it kind of looks, Gamera's kind of like kicking the crap out of Jiger, like in the like
Hmm.
opening fight, like it very much like it's very one sided where
Hmm.
Gamera is just like beating him up and everything, or beating her up. Sorry, I'm gonna misspoke on that a bunch, so
I'm gonna do
please.
that too. So yeah.
So anyway, it get Jiger is a she. Just want to say that very clearly. But anyway, um, they yeah, he's beating up her pretty good, and then all of a sudden we kind of they do this like in Giron where like he shot out like the ninja stars and hit Gamera.
Hmm.
This one it's like they call it solidified saliva, like
Yeah.
or spears, and it shot out and hit Gamera like right in its joints, so Gamera couldn't retract his limbs and go into his like little turtle shell, and then because that's how in the very first movie, if you remember, like that was like their big like, oh well, if we flip Gamera on his shell, he's he can't get up ever. But in the original movie, he used his jet to propel himself to stand up. So,
Hmm.
but the only way he can use his jets is if he gets his limbs inside of his shell.
Hmm.
So he's got like these spears in his legs. So he's trying to retract his limbs, but they keep getting caught on the shell. Like, I can't go in.
Yeah, one of the great sequences in this movie is that whole sequence where you can't get it in, and so he has to like shimmy his way to a rock so he can prop his legs up to like push the needles out of his legs. Uh, it's just so interesting. We've talked about this before, but like the Gamera movies, like give the monsters like a lot of character. Like Gamera has like full like face reactions during all of this. It's like almost something out of like a cartoon. It's very funny.
They have personality, which is
Yeah.
which is so different from all the other ones. They're the most human like out of all the other monster movies. I
Hmm.
feel like, or because like you said, like who would even think like Godzilla would not do that? You know, it'd just be like this big like he's
Mhm.
laying down, and you know you'd probably get back up later or something. But
Yes, yeah.
uh, the thing that's silly though about this scene though is that he makes a big deal about getting those out, and he has two in his arms too, and I'm
Mhm.
like, can you just like pull those out? And
And he
like
does.
so I was thinking the whole time, I'm like, can he not pull them out? Or like are they on his elbows so he can't move his joints or something? But he he removes the ones from his legs so he's able to jet propel himself to stand up, and then he's just like, oh, like just casually like takes the other barbs out of his arms. Like, why didn't he do that earlier?
Yeah, it makes no sense. He waits till he flies. I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, he because he bends it and like very gracefully takes him out of his arm. And of course there's blue blood all over it. Um,
Yeah.
but what's so crazy about this movie is we go into the next fight, and Jiger has like a Jigra. That's not a monster. Jiger has like suction cups and can suck Gamera up, and then takes like its tail, impales Gamera, and impregnates Gamera. Insane. This from this point on, this movie takes like some a wacky turn.
Well, yeah, like never would you think, because you don't know what happens to Gamera at first. It's just
No.
it looks like he just gets stabbed.
Yes, yeah,
And
and like immobilized or something, like poison.
right, and he just kind of like he lingers over. And the thing, oh, one other thing too, I got to point out that's really stupid about this commentary. I can't. There's like because like there's like a scene where like the kids are discussing Gamera, and
Mhm.
he's like, "Oh, wouldn't have that been so cool?" He's like, "I would have loved to have a Gamera fan club when I was a kid, but I didn't have that. I did have a Fonzie fan club when I was a kid. That me and my friends would talk about how great Fonzie was."
What? Oh my god. This sounds awful. I don't want to hear about Fonzie in my Gamera commentary.
It's awful, but I had to say that because that was like one
Yes.
point. Like I was just like I was like rolling my eyes so hard. But yeah, like okay, yeah, he Gamera gets stabbed, and you don't really know at first what happens to him because he falls over and he pretty much dies
Yeah,
like
his
right
face
there.
like grows white and everything.
Yeah, he goes translucent almost,
Mhm.
and like the kids are like, no, Gamera can't be dead. There's no way. And then like Hiroshi's big sister shows up. He's like, okay, he's dead. Like very nonchalant, like Gamera's dead. Let's go inside, kids. Like,
We need to be safe.
and I'm like, just not a bit of sympathy. Like after the Gamera has like done everything to like protect the Earth from
Hmm.
this giant Jiger, and it's like, oh yeah, he's dead. Forget it.
Yeah, but that's when this movie takes the wacky turn that it becomes a Fantastic Voyage ripoff, and they travel
Yeah.
inside of Gamera.
Well, again, you don't know
Mhm.
because they have to go. They fly over Gamera and they take X-rays of Gamera like he's
Yeah.
at a doctor's office. And at first, because I don't know what's going to happen, I don't know what that thing did to
No,
him.
yeah.
And at first, like they're like, okay, you can see right here clearly on Gamera there is a dark lesion on him, and it looks like cancer. And I'm like,
Yeah, I
what?
I heard that. I was like, are we doing a cancer plot point? Did Jiger give Gamera
Get
cancer?
Jiger has the ability to give people cancer.
Oh, imagine that movie. Oh my god.
Just everyone just dies slow, painful deaths.
Horrible.
Just, but yeah, no, they don't know, and but then they kind of surmise it's like, okay, well, it kind of looks like this larva type of thing, and because like they were saying like, oh well, there's certain bugs that can climb into living organisms and they lay their eggs and they hatch, and how
Mhm.
they educate that, they show a video of this elephant with like this big like lump in its trunk, and then they go in and slice the trunk open, and like all these bugs just like fall out, like all this like worm like larvas.
Yeah,
And
I saw that. It made me a little sick, honestly, because it's a very gross visual.
yeah, I mean obviously fake. I
Yeah, of
mean,
course, but it
because
looks
you
like maggots are all in like this elephant's trunk and they cut it open. I was like, man, a kid would probably get freaked out
that,
over this.
which I that's one behind the scenes thing I learned not from Hero, and I had not for the commentary. I had to go searching elsewhere. Like, yeah, that was a fake. That was done by Capri, which you could tell. It looks like a little sleeve
Yeah.
they put over the trunk, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's really gross looking. But yeah, they surmise like, okay, there might be some type of larva or living creature inside a Gamera, and so the kids take it upon themselves because Hiroshi's dad had constructed this little yellow submarine for the expo, and they
Mhm.
get in there, and like you said, they swim into Gamera, and it's like there's a whole scene that takes place like in Gamera's innards.
Yeah, they drive the submarine around. They have a tracker on Gamera's X-ray, and they're following along. And they get out of the submarine, and that's when you get revealed. There's a little baby Jiger crawling around in Gamera, who has a disgusting power, by the way. The power where it like shoots white goop out of its horn, and the visual is very gross.
Yeah, it.
It's
I'm not gonna.
yeah, it's off camera, and all you see is just a big white glob of stuff enter the screen and touch the ground. It is very, very interesting visuals. That's
It
what
looks
I'll say.
like toothpaste.
You know the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man scene, kind of like that.
Yeah, there you
Mhm.
go. But yeah, it's a little baby Jiger, and like the kids are having to like they're being chased inside a Gamera by this little Jiger running around. Which I wanted to know like who played that, or was it like the
Right?
was it the actor who played Son of Godzilla? Was it Minya?
I
I would
hope
hope
so.
so. Eh, but the one thing they did bring with them, which I thought it was weird that they made like a big deal, like to like they pointed out at first, was that like, oh, grab one of the receivers, which is like this
Hmm.
looks like a landline phone, and they take it inside of the sub, and that's how they communicate with the outside. But it produces like this really static feedback noise,
Hmm.
and the Bill Baby Jagger's like, I don't like that at all, like type of
Hmm.
thing, and the kid's like just chucks the receiver at him and sticks to his head, and that's how the little baby Jiger dies.
Yeah. So their weakness is phones, people. Jiger's weakness is phones.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he was on his phone too much.
Hmm. You know, phones cause cancer.
That's right, and
Hmm.
babies.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, that's really like I was surprised at some of the like the turns this movie took because
Yeah, because all Gamera movies are a little weird and always do like these odd things, but this one's definitely on like the end of like they had like a writer's room or something, and they were just throwing everything like we should do this and this, and it really does take a lot of turns, and I think that's what keeps this one interesting. I think it's the best Gamera movie in a little bit.
yeah, I mean, I still don't. It's not my favorite one still,
No.
but it's definitely one of the strongest ones. I feel like because
Mhm.
there's really not a whole lot of downtime. I mean, they move it pretty quickly along. Like the other ones, it's like in Virus, or or Virus, they go and like on the spaceship and they're on the spaceship forever. It feels
Mhm.
like, or in Giron, it's like they're in outer space for like a really long time too. So
Mhm.
it gets kind of old a little bit because it's like the same settings. But this one, like it flows really nicely. I feel like it's at a nice steady pace to where I really wasn't bored at any point during it.
Mhm.
And what I really enjoyed too is that, like you said, I always like it when movies just like we're just going to try something really different here, and like
Mhm.
that's one thing about Gamera movies, like they are not afraid to try things like this. Like there's like we're just going to make this as wacky as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're just willing to do that. And yeah, no, and I think that's part of the charm of it, right? Is just the fact that they'll go there. and the fact that Gamera is also just a likable monster.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But
Yeah.
there's when we finally get to the final sequence, because they basically use like a giant defibrillator on Gamera and they zap him awake. And when Gamera finally goes for his final confrontation, Gamera's like all ready to go this time. He knows Jiger's secrets. And one power we didn't bring up is that Jiger has this ability to produce like these super sound waves.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns basically like towns into these giant crater looking things. And at first, Jiger shoots it at Gamera, and they're like, "Oh no, Gamera's gonna get hurt. His ears are gonna explode." So how does Gamera solve this? Gamera breaks off two giant electrical poles and jams them in his ears to where his ears are bleeding.
Yeah, deep into his ears. Like the blue blood is showing on these like poles. It's actually really disturbing because he's like gotta be jamming these into his brain.
It's a gross visual. It's very much
Mhm.
like I was not expecting that again. I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh man. But it's they definitely one thing like again about these is these are super bloody movies. Like like
They're violent.
Godzilla it was like shocking when they would
Mhm.
like cross the line where Godzilla would bleed. And
Mhm.
this one it's like, oh well, this yeah, well this would
Gamera.
it's a Gamera just bleeds all the time. He gets his limbs all hacked up and he gets impaled. It's no big
Yeah.
deal.
Well, that's how Jiger dies. Jiger gets impaled by the whistle directly into its head.
Yeah, Gamera chucks it like a spear, like a javelin, right between Jiger's eyes.
Yeah. It's crazy, which is funny because Gamera is the more kid-friendly Godzilla movie, and I say that in quotations, like, it's meant to be like, "Oh, it's for the kids, he's the best friend with the kid," but it's also just hyper violent too.
Like, can you imagine Godzilla like taking like a spear and just impaling like through the head of like Gigan or something? It's
No,
like,
that's not happening.
yeah, it'd be
Stereo
so.
Honda would be so mad.
That would have been shocking. But I
Mhm.
mean, this one, like it's very bloody. But yeah, that's pretty much how they figure it out. Like they use the sound waves against Jiger, makes Jiger weak, and then Gamera kind of capitalizes on that and impales Jiger, and then flies Jiger back and puts Jiger back in her hole.
Yep, back home, and then we
And
we we get the Gamera theme.
yeah,
But you
and
mentioned this earlier, it makes that plot point really funny because the dad's
well,
just like, "Oh, go ahead."
well, no. One last thing too, I was gonna say is like after they show Gamera pulling the electrical poles out of his ears,
Mhm.
and the kids are like, "Bye, Gamera. Hope your ears get better." Just no, yeah, but yeah, you go ahead now. What? So yeah, going back to the plot point of the statue.
They send it back, and like the dad's just like, "Oh yeah, we're bringing it back to where it needs to be." Gamera took care of Jiger. Let's make sure it goes back, which makes no sense because that thing was only there to keep Jiger back. So why not? You went through all this trouble, people died. Why not just show it at the expo? I think it's to hide it. They're like, we can't
No,
hide this. We gotta hide
no,
it.
it's even worse because it's like because he says that he's like, we're gonna put it back where it belongs,
Hmm.
and then they're like, oh, what about the World Expo? He's like, oh, we'll just build a replica, and it's like, what? It's you couldn't do that before? Like, what the hell?
I can't. We had this whole movie for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, like if they just took took the time to make a replica of the statue, nobody would have known the difference.
No, no one would care.
But yeah, it very very silly ending. Like I was just like, what? And but yeah, I mean the movie, it goes back to the status quo. Everyone's happy.
Mhm.
Cameron's defeated the monster. So same kind of beat for beat stories in here. But like I said, it takes a lot of really wacky turns to it. It has a nice steady pace to it. So for my money, it's definitely one of the better of the Gamera series. I'm not sure where it falls in right now for me, but it's definitely up there. It's like one of the top ones.
Yeah, I like this one quite a bit. I think it's one of the better Gamera movies. Just a fun entry. no stock footage. That's a plus, and I think it's just wacky, and I just appreciate that about it. It never knew where it was going to go. I had fun the whole time.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely would give this one a recommend. I mean, if you liked if you like the cheesy monster movies, this is definitely one of the better Gamera movies that I think you'll like. So give it a watch. It's a good time. But I think that's going to do it though for Bonro this week, Nathan. Hopefully there'll be a better commentary where we can actually learn something for once.
That would be nice. A commentary where you learn and you just don't listen to someone talk about their Fonzie fan club.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think we're gonna go back to our regular scheduled picks. So Nathan, what are we gonna be talking about next week?
All right, Ryan. Next week on Tuesday, we are going to be watching To Live and Die in LA. And that is not streaming anywhere, so you will have to rent that one. But Ryan, what are we going to be talking about on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, I know how much you like cops. You got your Blue Lives. No.
Yeah, my Blue Lives poster. No. Big cop fan over here. Of the movie. Of the movie Cop.
Right. That's what I was alluding to, Nathan. You really like the movie Cop. So I thought I'd give you another cop movie to go with that. So Nathan, we're gonna be talking about 1989's Violent Cop.
Oh no, not a violent cop? No way.
Yeah, so brace yourself for that one and for that fantasy film.
Oh man. I don't know. Is this pushing it?
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe. But anyway, Nathan, that movie Violent Cop is streaming over on Tubi right now for free. You can watch that right now.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Well, perfect. So if you have any thoughts and opinions on the podcast, please email us over at drivein-double-feature-podcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on X at DIDFPod. And once again, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/drivein-double-feature-podcast. But until next time.